One moral question stands out as more important than any other. This question is the ultimate moral question. One cannot seriously consider morality without coming to this question. It is a question which I cannot help frequently coming back to and attempting to find a satisfactory answer for. The question has a number of variations. Is evil irrational? Is moral behavior desirable, and if it isn't, then why be moral? Why should we be moral? Why be moral if it isn't in your interest? Why care about doing what is moral? In spite of many variations, the core of the question remains the same. Morality is all about how we should act, but quite often we are incapable of explaining why anyone should care about our moral claims. This is terribly ironic. Morality is all about the ought, but quite often it is not supported by the ought. We say people should act in a certain way, but fail to explain why exactly they should act in that way. We issue commands, but we fail to justify them. Our commands are supported by nothing but the mindless assumption of righteousness, and on occasion our real or perceived authority. In other words, our morality is based on nothing but intuition, dogma, and might makes right style reasoning. We talk about how people should act and then fail to actually explain why anyone should act like that. In doing so, we reveal that our morality is irrational and that we barely even understand it. We are just dogmatists who assume the validity of a set of often incoherent and irrational moral assumptions. How can we even know if we are right? We are averse to rationality and introspection. We lay our moral ideas down as obvious intuitive truth, just as every person with differing moral ideas does. We look down on the dogma of our enemies, and then commit an identical folly when we never even ask why we should care about our own moral views. We talk about how irrational our enemies are, but never point our rational gaze towards ourselves. These confronting questions rip into our dogmatic assumptions, expose the baseless nature of our worldview, and force us to find an answer. They force us to ground our morality in rationality, rather than intuition and dogma. They are questions that many of us will never really consider, but we should, and until we do, we will be foolish, irrational dogmatists. People who promote moral views that they don't even understand. People who are completely ignorant of the reality of the moral compass that is central to their worldview. Many of us believe the right things, but for the wrong reasons, or no reason at all. We need introspection and rationality to move beyond this mind-numbing dogmatism and the barrier to intellectual progress that it constructs. Some may say the ultimate moral question is the following: what makes something moral or immoral? I think we must first consider desirability and why we should act morally. I think it makes sense to construct our morality around that question. Without an answer to that question, our morality is nothing. For that reason, we should start with that question. Without considering that question, we can come up with infinite moral systems, only to discover that there is no reason why anyone should care about our claims, about how they should act. We find out what makes something moral or immoral after finding out why we should care about morality. It doesn't make sense to construct a moral system when you haven't even proven that we should have a moral system. We need to first answer that question and build everything from there, because without the should, morality is nothing. Why should anyone care about how you tell them they should act if you can't even tell them why they should behave in that way? This question needs to be answered first. Otherwise, our moral systems will always be incoherent and absurd. Arrogant statements without any explanation about why we should actually care. These questions can be answered in a range of ways. One could simply dismiss the value of morality outright. Personally, I prefer arguments relating to reciprocity and rational self-interest. Don't mistake me for amoral, or this for a denouncement of morality. I am very much a supporter of morality, but today I don't want to go too far down that road. I am simply encouraging you to engage in introspection, ask these very important questions, and from there advance your ideas and understandings. I could talk about my thoughts on this question forever. Today, however, I simply want you to think about it. I want you to look at those questions and consider their potential answers. Why should anyone care about morality? If it is in someone's interest to be immoral, why shouldn't they be? These are various reiterations of the same question, and they represent a very challenging issue. A confronting and challenging question, which forces us to move our morality beyond a set of irrational commands that we view as self-evident. It is easy to say we should be moral, but why should we be moral? If you can't answer such a question, why should anyone take your moral system seriously? Because of the law? That would be a might makes a right argument. See what answers you can come up with. Feel free to share your thoughts. I am interested in what you think.